The sound came first, a low hum beneath the feet, metal gliding against metal, steady as a heartbeat. Outside, Europe passed in shadows and light. Inside, everything glowed amber. The dining car of the Orient Express was a world apart, a corridor of mahogany, brass, and polished crystal, moving through the dark at 60 miles an hour. Each table bore a small lamp with a silk shade, its light trembling slightly with every turn of the rails. Waiters in white coats stood ready, their movements so measured that even the rocking of the train seemed rehearsed. To dine here was to step outside of time. One could forget the soot, the noise, the world rushing by beyond the window. Dinner aboard the Orient Express was not just a meal, it was civilization, served on fine porcelain, carried by rails that connected empires. When the Orient Express began its first journey in 1883, Europe was a continent of borders. Every frontier demanded a new train, a new customs inspection, a pause in the rhythm of travel. But one man, a Belgian engineer named Georges Nagelmakers, dreamed of a single line that could cross the continent without interruption. He had seen the luxury Pullman cars in America, where passengers slept and dined in rolling hotels. He wanted the same refinement for Europe, but with a touch of Paris. So, with the support of King Leopold II of Belgium, Nagelmakers founded the Compagnie Internationale des Wagons-Lits, the International Sleeping Car Company. By autumn of 1883, the Orient Express departed from Paris bound for Constantinople, today's Istanbul. The journey was long, divided by ferries and missing tracks, but the promise was irresistible: to travel across civilizations without leaving the comfort of velvet and silver. Within a few years, that promise became reality, and with it came an idea that changed travel forever: that a journey could be defined not by where you arrived, but by what you experienced along the way. And nothing defined the Orient Express more than its food. Each evening, as the sky dimmed beyond the curtains, a steward would glide down the corridor and announce softly, "Dinner is served." Passengers changed from dust-streaked travel clothes into evening wear. Men fastened cufflinks, women adjusted gloves. By the time they entered the dining car, the air was already perfumed with butter, roasted meat, and polish from the brass lamps. Tables seated 2 or 4. White linen gleamed beneath crystal glassware. Silver forks rested on folded napkins. Through the windows, forests and villages slid by in silence, while inside, conversation began in French, German, English, Italian, the languages of a continent shared over supper. Service was deliberate and quiet. Waiters moved with the precision of clockwork, balancing trays while the carriage swayed gently. Wine was poured at the perfect angle, plates replaced without a sound. Dinner could last 2 hours or more, time measured not in minutes but in courses. Outside, the train cut through mountains and rivers. Inside, humanity slowed down to savor, not speed, but grace. Few knew that the Orient Express owed its menus to one of the most influential chefs in history, Auguste Escoffier. He was the man who shaped modern French cuisine, and from the 1890s until the Second World War, his influence guided nearly every dish served aboard the train. It meant that a journey by rail could rival dinner at the Ritz. In the narrow galley, chefs worked beside coal stoves that trembled with each turn of the track. Space was scarce. 2 men could barely pass, yet from that small kitchen emerged dinners worthy of a palace. Menus shifted with geography. A train leaving Paris might serve oysters from Normandy, consommé laced with truffle, or lobster thermidor. Crossing into Austria, passengers found veal medallions with morel sauce. Farther east, pilaf spiced with cinnamon and lamb, a nod to the Ottoman Empire. The plates themselves told the story of a continent. Peach melba from France, strudel from Vienna, Turkish delight dusted with pistachio. Each course mirrored the land rushing by outside the window. Wine lists read like maps of Europe, Bordeaux beside Tokaji, Burgundy beside Moselle, and the service was as refined as the cuisine. Porcelain from Limoges, crystal by Baccarat, and cutlery stamped OE in polished silver. Behind the curtain, cooks endured burns, noise, and motion, their hands steady as the train swayed. They worked through the night, cleaning, ironing linen, arranging fresh flowers for morning service. By dawn, the dining car smelled of coffee, fruit, and bread still warm from the stove. On this moving stage, food became theater, and the chefs its invisible actors. To dine on the Orient Express was to taste an illusion, a Europe that never truly existed except between sunset and dessert. Outside, nations struggled with soot, borders, and unrest. Inside, the world seemed whole, elegant, and civilized. Each dinner was a fragile act of harmony. French chefs cooking for English diplomats, German waiters serving Turkish passengers, languages intertwined, and for a few hours the continent shared a single table. The trains of the Wagenlitz Company became witnesses to history. In 1918, inside one of their dining cars, Germany signed its surrender, the armistice that ended the First World War. In 1940, Hitler used that same car to humiliate France and later destroyed it, fearing its symbolism. Still, the spirit of the Orient Express endured. Between the wars, it entered its second golden age, now with steel carriages and the gleam of Art Deco. Writers and royalty filled its seats. Agatha Christie turned it into legend, while travelers like Beverly Nichols wrote of veal, white wine, and the rhythm of the rails. To dine here was to experience civilization at its most delicate, beauty surviving through precision. Every plate, every glass, every pause between courses was a small act of resistance against chaos, because even as the world around it fractured, the Orient Express kept its poise and served dinner on time. When night deepened and the last passengers retired, the dining car emptied slowly. Waiters folded the linen, polished the silver, and dimmed the lamps until only reflections glowed on the glass. Beyond the windows, the world slipped by, villages sleeping, rivers glinting faintly under the moon. Somewhere, perhaps, a lone traveler lingered, hand around a cooling cup of coffee, listening to the steady rhythm beneath the floor. In that sound was the heartbeat of another age. An age when people believed that movement could still be graceful and that a meal could hold the world together. The Orient Express would outlive its golden years, vanish, and return again, polished, restored, reinvented. But its true legacy was never the distance it crossed. It was the way it made people feel, suspended between places, between courses, between centuries. Because to dine on the Orient Express was never only about food. It was about the illusion of calm, that fragile moment when the world outside rushed by and inside a lamp glowed softly over fine china, and the taste of butter and wine lingered just a little longer than time itself. And that was what dining on the Orient Express was really like.